Shabbat Shalom. It's been a while. I've been gone for a while. Well, not gone, but I haven't recorded a lesson. And so lately, there's been a lot on my mind, a lot on my heart, and there has been a lot going on, as we can see as we look at the climate of our times globally, not just in our state that we're in right now in California, but everywhere. There's disasters, there's fires, there's social uprising, there's these elections getting ready to come. And I have just been prompted by the Spirit to do a lesson. Not only do a lesson, but also to rightfully position myself for the things that I have been praying for. We kind of get caught up, and it just speaks of our humanity and the brevity of life and just our fragility and our dependence on Yah. My thing has been just completing tasks. I'm in school right now, and school has just started. We're doing classrooms via the virtual learning, virtual platforms, myself, my children, my grandchildren. And so it's just been a lot, and you kind of can get vertigo, for better sense of the word, vertigo, where you just kind of lose your direction and you forget where to focus on. And so in me turning my heart back towards home, I've got back into my word, and I said, you know what, yeah, but I got all this homework and I have all this other stuff, and I am a stickler for not liking excuses. I don't like excuses. I don't like to make excuses. And so I have to check myself. And so my own mission statement checked me. And so here I am, and being obedient and back doing my lessons. And regardless of what I'm going through, what it looks like, Yah told me to seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and then all these other things will be added into me. This week looks like he added some extra time into the week for me to get the things done that needed to be done. I accomplished my tasks that I have and my commitments that I have to school, to my children, to my grandchildren, to my community partners. And when he gave me that, I am offering my sacrifice today, my sacrifice of praise and my obedience. Okay, so that's why I'm here. I've been gone a while, but it's good to be back in behind this camera, but with you all, still getting ready to just lead you into my lesson that I started last week, and I didn't post it last week because I didn't want to rush, because there's so much more in this word. As you all know, it's a treasure, and Yah just filled me today, and so I'm excited to share with you. So we'll be going through 2 Chronicles chapter 20. And I titled this, What Shall We Do When Our Enemy Comes? And as you know, in 2 Chronicles, this is after King David has gone on home to be with his ancestors, or to sleep with the fathers. And 1 Chronicles 29:28 says, the death of David. Then he died in a ripe old age, full of days, riches, and honor, and his son King Solomon reigned in his place. Now the acts of King David from first to last are written in the Chronicles of Shemuel the seer, in the Chronicles of Nathan the prophet, and in the Chronicles of Gad the seer, with all his reign, his power, and the circumstances which came on him, on Israel, and on all of the kingdoms of the land. And then we get to Chronicles, 2 Chronicles. And in 2 Chronicles, I'll just give you a little brief history of 2 Chronicles. It's the second book of Chronicles. It continues the story of 1 Chronicles. And it's it encompasses most of the history of the what they would call the Old Testament, or the Brit Kadashah. No, it's not the Brit Kadashah. Forgive me. Of the book of the prophets. So that's what it encompasses. And it's before the Babylon exile. It's believed that Ezra, the priest, is believed to be the author. And it covers the events of 1 Kings and 2 Kings. It omits the narratives of the apostate of the northern kingdom of Israel. The book of Kings was written before the captivity of the book of Chronicles,
were written afterwards. And it traces the history of the prophetic point of view. And the northern kingdom wasn't really mentioned because of their apostate, or them growing away from the book of the law of Yah, them choosing to be disobedient, them choosing to fight against Judah, and the kingdom being split. And so we'll just jump right in. This is Second Chronicles teaches us that the path back to Yah begins with genuine repentance and a desire to restore Yah's original pattern. And so this is what we'll look at in Second Chronicles 20. So, Moab and Ammon come to make war against Jehosaphat. Jehosaphat is the king of Judah right now, and he is the son of Asa, the fourth king of Judah. We know that Ammon and Moab are the cousins of Israel. They are the sons of Lot. Genesis 19, 37 through 38. And those are the daughters. They were the children of the daughters of Lot through an incestuous situation where they got their father drunk. And after they had escaped from the land from Sodom and Gomorrah, and their fiancés or husbands or whoever they were died, because they wanted to stay there in the house of destruction, Babylon, continue to bask in their wickedness. They perished. And so they're cousins of Israel. And again, Genesis 19, 37 through 38 takes us there. And because something is mentioned, I just want to go ahead and throw this in there. It does not mean it's allowed, okay? So there are things that are mentioned in our word because they are highlighted as a reference point and as a template of what not to do. Because it's mentioned doesn't mean that it's permissible and that we should do it and that we should repeat the cycles. It's mentioned so that we have a reference point and know what not to do, okay? So I always like to highlight on the book of Elohim, or this book that we read, the Bible. Some call it the Bible, the law. And I like to say that the Bible is a book of history. It's a book of correction. It's a book of wisdom. It's a book of encouragement. And it is Yah speaking to us and through others who have made themselves available. His hands, his feet, and his mouth. But they spoke his words, right? And when names are mentioned, they are mentioned again as a reference point to go back and understand the culture, the context, and the character of the people. Because the names also were given, and the name spoke of the character of the individual. So the character of the individual and their name usually were synonymous, ran hand in hand, and it's important. And then it's important also when names are mentioned, it's a clue for you to go back and look. This book is a book for you to go back and study and prove yo Elohim, see that his words are true, see that he doesn't lie, and takes you back to the point of reference so that you understand where it is you've come from and where it is you're going to. And life is cyclical, and so we know that cycles are repeated, not to repeat the same mistake when we come back up against a certain situation, okay? And so just because it's mentioned doesn't mean that it's allowed. So I'm gonna start. Now it came about after this that the sons of Moab and the sons of Ammon, together with some of the Meunites, came to war against Jehosaphat. Then some came and reported, in coming against a great multitude is coming against you from beyond the sea of Aram, and behold, they are in Hazaron Tamar. This is in Gedi. And Jehoshaphat was afraid and turned his attention to seek Yahuwah and claimed a fast throughout all of Judah. So Judah gathered together to seek help from Yahuwah. They even came from all the cities of Judah to seek Yahuwah. So Hezron, Tamar is in Gedi. Remember, the names, the places, and the things are specified for a reason. So 2 Chronicles 10, 12 through 16. I'm going to read that because it gives you some history. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines. And they fell and slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines closely pursued Saul and his sons, and the Philistines struck down Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchi, Shua, and the son of Saul. And the battle became very heavy against Shaul, and the archers overtook him, and he was wounded by the archers. And the archers said to his armor bearer, draw your sword. And we see this is where the end of Saul happens, right? So I'm going to stop there, but 12 through 16. Then they had heard what had happened to Saul. All the valiant men rose and took away the body of Shaul and the bodies of his son and brought them to Jabesh and buried their bones under the oak of Jabesh and fasted 7 days. So Shaul died for his trespass, which he committed against Yahuwah, because of the word of Yahuwah, which he did not keep, and because he asked counsel of a medium, making inquiry of it. And he did not inquire of Yahuwah, therefore he was killed, and he turned the kingdom to Dawid and the son of Jesse. Okay, is this the right one? Am I in chapter 10? No, I'm not. Oh, yes, I am. I'm in chapter 10. That Hezron, that is where that happened, but it was supposed to be a reference of something else, and maybe I wrote it down wrong. But what basically I wanted to highlight on, because you look on there because I don't like to give bad information. Okay, so I wrote this scripture where it speaks about not fighting against the sons of Yahuwah, or not fighting against your brethren, your kindred. And that's what had happened. This is what's happening again. Moab and Ammon come to war against Jehosaphat. The report was given to Jehosaphat, and he was afraid. And we see what he did when he was afraid. First, now this is a leader. We're talking about leaders, leadership. What do we do when our enemy attacks us, right? Even as we're in a position of authority and as we are leaders, we have been given the position of an ambassador, but we don't have all knowledge, all strength, all power. We've just been given authority. But also when things are happening that we don't have the reasoning or the might or the strength to go through and solve the problem, we're called to do something. And so we're just seeing here the order of operation. So we see the families are fighting against another family. So the land of Judah, the kingdoms have been split. But we know that Ammon and Moab are the cousins of Judah. These are cousins. This is family. And so we get to see this whole tribal unrest, and we get to see what happens when one who is put in authority is presented with an issue, because we know one thing: a king is responsible for the entire kingdom. So one wrong move will cost many lives. And some kind of way, this kingdom has come to a consensus that they're going to attack their cousins because of disobedience and perpetuating curses and generational behaviors. So as Judah was invaded, Jehosaphat was afraid. He called a nationwide fast. We don't see that going on right now. We see a bunch of propagating, peacocking, chest poking out, antagonizing, antagonistic behavior, which only begets more strife. And so we see the humility right now, the humility of a king, and him not knowing what to do. And in his humanity and in the wisdom that he has, he prostrates himself and takes on a position of affliction so that he can get an answer. So he calls a nationwide fast to seek the counsel of Yah. Not the counsel of man, but the counsel of Yah. To weaken his state, to make himself more sensitive. See, fast, that's what a fast is supposed to do. We've gotten to the point where we think we're supposed to fast to get our way. But we're supposed to fast to take away to heighten our sensitivity, to weaken our strength so that we know where our reliance and our strength comes from, to be fortified by the one who we seek answers from. That's what a fast is for. So he seeks help from Yah in the time of trouble. And we see his prayer. So after he seeks, he humbles himself and takes himself into a humbling posture. He then prays. And verse 5, I'll read his prayer. And Jehoshaphat's prayer. Then Jehosaphat stood in the assembly of Judah and Jerusalem, in the house of Yahuwah before the new court, and he said, O Yahuwah, Elohim of our fathers, art thou not ruler over all kingdoms of the nations? Power and might are in thy hand, so that no one can stand against thee. Didst thou not, O our Father, O our Elohim, drive out the inhabitants of this land before thy people Yisrael, and give it to the descendants of Abram, thy friend forever? Question mark. I want to pause right here. That, I don't know where that cliche statement comes from. We can't question Yah. You know, when stuff happens, we just have to know that it's his will. We can't question him because that's not what you're supposed to do. I'm refuting that right here. And I didn't do it. Yah has. It's in his word. He said, didn't you already drive these people out of the land and give it to our descendants and give it to the descendants of Abraham, thy friend forever? Did you not? That's a question. And they lived in it and have built thee a sanctuary there for thy name's saying, causing remembrance, bringing forth the remembrance. Not that Yah has forgotten anything, right? He doesn't forget. He's not a man that he should lie. He doesn't have memory loss. He's omniscient, omnipotent, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-hearing. He knows this. But he's repeating it back to him because I'm letting you know that I know this too. I've read this. And so I'm going to convey this back to you, Father, because if I'm your friend, I can talk to you, right? And then he says in verse 9, should evil come upon us, or the sword, or judgment, or pestilence, or famine, we will stand before this house and before thee, for thy name is in this house. I'll pause again. Thy name, his name, this vain blanketed statement of a name, God, is not his name. He has a name. In relationships, when we're in a relationship with a person, we don't call them by their identifier as a boyfriend. That could be anybody. We say my boyfriend. That's concealing basically the identity of who I have. My friend, that's concealing because, again, you're not being transparent, or you're clearly not wanting to reveal to another what the name of the person is that you hold dear to you. But my Father has a name, and his name is in his house, and his name is a.Yah, or Yahweh, Yahuwah. And his name holds weight. And so to say his name causes enemies to fall back, right? Causes the enemy to fall back. I can say God all day long. There's Baal, there's Dagon, there's all these other gods floating around here. And I don't know who I'm calling, right? But if I call my God, my Elohim, my Father, and his name is in his house, I got to know his name to tell you where his house is at and what name exists in that house. Because if you come to that house, the fight ain't gonna be fair. You're not winning. So this is why the name is so important, and this is why I express the name, and I'm adamant about the name, and I will, if you ask me what his name is, I will tell you what his name is. Those who don't use the name and who say, oh God, big G, little g, holds no weight, because the name has been veiled in some of your books for a reason, so that you can't access the power. It's time to access the power right now in this time of what we're going through, in this time of social unrest, social injustices, systemic and systematic racism, and the oppressions that continue to exist because we think we're doing something right. Say his name, Black Lives Matter, all of these things, no affiliation with any of that, but I'm just saying, not the Black Lives Matter, I don't have any affiliation with that, because I don't consider myself black. I am, until we get it all together, I'm a child of the diaspora, and I am a child of the Most High King Yah, and that is my identifier. And I am part of a human race. I am not a race. I'm part of a nation called out by Yah. That is my identifier, okay? And she, her, and hers is how I'm identified, okay? But all of those things, I said all of that to say his name is important. A name is important. A name that you call yourself by is important. A name that you fall under and live under the umbrella of is very important. And a name that somebody else gives you shows their ownership over you. So again, I am a father. I am a child of a descendant of the Most High King. Okay. And now behold, the sons of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir, whom thou didst not let Israel invade, when they came out of the land of Egypt, they turned aside from them and did not destroy them. Behold, now they are rewarding us by coming to drive us out from thy possession, which thou hast given us as an inheritance. Verse 12, O Yah, our Elohim, wilt thou not judge them? Another question for not questioning Yah, right? Another question. Will you not? Now I'm speaking your word to you. I'm again referencing back, remembering Zakar. I'm remembering what has been taking place and what we did. We didn't destroy them. When they wouldn't even help us, they wouldn't let us cross through their land, and we didn't destroy them. And now they're coming at us, and they're coming to drive us out of the land that you've given us. Okay. Verse 12 again. For we are powerless before this great multitude who are coming against us, nor do we know what to do. But our eyes are on thee. And all Judah was standing before Yahuwah with their infants, their wives, and their children, collectively. Worship is collectively. Prayer is collectively. So those of us who are in relationships, who are in marriages, even friendships with our and children, have children at home, it's a collective process. Yeah, we are to pray in our closets with earnest and sincere hearts when we are pouring out to Yah, when there are issues that it's just us. But when it's something involving the entire unit, collectively we should get together and we should pray. And we should vocalize what it is that is bothering us and leave it before the throne of Yah, so that we can get the answers to the questions that we have, or to our, again, loss of point of reference. He says we don't know what to do. We're powerless. Okay. And so we see Jehoshaphat's prayer. I see some things that just stood out to me, and it was just amazing. Jehosaphat is the king and the ruler, and he prays before the people. He don't get puffed up, haughty, and proud. He don't know what to do. He's not acting like our White House resident who didn't know what to do in the face of a pandemic, or probably didn't know what to do, but in his pride and in his arrogance and his lack of humility, he's allowed the whole nation, globally and locally, collectively, to suffer. We'll find out later what the purpose is. What the plan is, right? But he takes on the posture. He prays before the people. You see in verse 5 through 7, he confesses his reliance on Yah, only because Yah ordained. He's leading only because Yah has ordained him to lead. He's not leading because he was born a leader. He's leading because he's a successor of a king, and his father did right, and under the in the eyes of Yah, and his father was the king, and so he becomes a king, and he confessed his reliance on Yah. He acknowledges the relationship, and the established covenant. So many of us have covenants, and we have relationships with no covenants in the relationship. Right here, he's saying in his prayer, he says, behold, he said, now you said if evil should come upon us, verse 9, a sword of judgment, a sword of pestilence or famine, that we should come and stand before the house of Yahuwah where your name is, and we are to cry to you in distress. So some of us are in relationships and we don't even have a covenant established in that relationship, because something should call, when there are things in a relationship that cause tension, strife, dissension, there should be a point of reference that we go back to before we get to all that. Before we get mad and call somebody else on the phone and talk about that person to the other person, before we get mad and get on social media and blast that person out on the street to the whole world, we can't draw it back in because once it's out, it's out. There should be something that's done, and that's come into the house where our name, where our covenant, where our relationship has been established, and let's talk about this. Let's pray about it. There should be a point of covering, protecting, not exposing, and knowing what to fall back on. And there has to be some fundamentals, right, to fall back on. There has to be a foundation laid already. There's something to think about. So there should be a covenant in a relationship to fall back on. Verse 10 says, he's calling Yah. He said, now behold. He's calling Yah as a witness. I see this. Now I'm calling you, behold. Come look. Come here, Pops. I need you to look at this. I'm calling you as a witness to see what our enemies are doing. So indicative of today. It's so indicative of today. I'm just real passionate right now about like everything that's going on. The public execution of George Floyd, the murder of Breonna Taylor, the murders of just so many of our young, bright, beautiful youth, right? People who are out there protesting, being arrested, those who fight silently in their own communities, who are gagged or, gag orders, first of all, they're blacklisted and they're not able to operate in certain capacities, or resources are taken away from them because they're speaking truth at this time. And our enemies are doing this to us because there is a reason why. There's a reason why this is being done. And it's, the supremacy and racism. People will call us racist because we are coming into the knowledge of our nation and our pride, and taking pride in our nation and who we really are. And that is done so because the system is reliant on us. If they don't have our disparities, if they don't have us going to prison, if we're not killing each other, if we're not sick, in their mind, because they're so reliant on self, and they have put themselves in the position of Elohim, or as king, or as quote unquote their own gods, they don't know where their resources will come from. We have these people whose land supplies resources to the entire world, Africa. We have the content of a nation who is rich, right? And if they wake up and realize that is theirs, they've been stolen, recompense and restitution and reconciliation needs to happen, and we're not going to be supreme anymore. And what if they do to us what we've done to them? This is the fear. This is why our enemies attack us. This is why we are murdered in the streets. This is why we are policed. And this is why our hands are up and we still get shot. Because these people, if they know who they are, and if at some point
they realize the name of their creator and really call on him, not marching in the street saying the people that are gunned down's name, but saying Yahuwah Elohim, a.Yah, Yahuwah, come and rescue us, then we're in trouble, right? So we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to keep them infighting, keep them mad at each other, keep them comparing one to another. Give them some money, give them some money, so they'll go buy some cars and some shoes and some diamonds and some gold, and they still ain't gonna buy no land, but keep them distracted. Let's keep them distracted while we find systems and transition into other platforms of digital currency and making alliances with other nations so that we can continue to conceal the nation and the race, and not the race, but the identity of these people. Let's do that. Let's do that, right? It's just so indicative of today. So then, again, we see where Jehosaphat prays. The whole community comes together, the entire nation, men, women, and children come together before Yahuwah, not going before him, not going ahead of him, but they standing before him, in a posture of humility and looking for an answer. The leadership asks for intervention. Then we see Jahazael answers the prayer. I'm sorry, that's my last point. Leadership asks for intervention and shows humility and fragility, as well as shows his dependence on Yah. So now we see the leadership, which is Jehosaphat. He's the king. So we have the king, the leader of the nation, asks for intervention for the king, from the king of the universe. And he shows his dependence before the people. Not proud. He's showing he's powerless at this point. Our enemies are coming. We got men, women, children. We have things at stake. And I need to go talk to somebody, and I need counsel, and I need wise counsel. So I'm going to my father. Okay? My next point, verse 14. Then in the midst of the assembly, the spirit of Yahuwah came upon Jahazael, the son of Zechariah, the son of Benaniah, the son of Yael, the son of Mattaniah, the Levite of the sons of Asaph. And he said, listen, all Yehudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and King Jehosaphat, thus saith Yahuwah to you. This is my favorite verse, okay? Always. Do not fear or be dismayed because of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but it's Yahuwah's. Tomorrow go down against them. Behold, they will come up by the accent of Ziz, and you will find them at the end of the valley in front of the wilderness of Uriel. But, verse 17, you need not fight this battle. Station yourself. Stand and see the salvation of Yahuwah. And on your behalf, the salvation of Yahuwah on your behalf, O Yehudah and Jerusalem. Do not fear or be dismayed. Tomorrow go out to face them, for Yahuwah is with you. I love that. Yah will choose a leader to speak on his behalf. And you see the order of operation. The king is the king of the nation, but he showed his reliance and his humility before his people, and he went and he called a prayer. He called a nation fast, and he prayed. He first started. That's an order of operation. Then Yahuwah chose Jahazael, the spiritual leader, somebody who has spiritual care, who has the spiritual soul watching, or the responsibility of watching the souls of the people, and who has been available and preparing himself and probably his heart to receive what it was Yah had to say. The spirit of Yahuwah came over him and spoke to him, spoke through him. He was a Levite of the sons of Asaph. So often we are encouraged. And so we know that Levites were the priestly order. So he was a son of a Levite, and the Levites were the ones that basically tended to the house of Yahuwah. And they also were cared for by the entire community, which means when their sacrifices were brought to the temple, they were given a portion. They were employed by Yah. They're all the days of their lives. And something else that's very exciting too is what a Levite is. A Levite is the firstborn of that which comes out of the womb first, and they are ordained back to Yah for his service, for his glory, for his use. And so most children, male or female, and it is said, I'm going to find the scripture so that you can reference it. Give me a minute. So Exodus 13:2, consecrate to me every firstborn. So every firstborn is consecrated to Yah, and they are considered a Levi, and they are supposed to be ordained back into Yahuwah for his good work, for his service, and for the salvation of their family, which is amazing. So that is why it's so important to raise our children up in the way that they should go. So verse 15 and 16 shows Yah encourages us before he gives us an assignment. So many times, I was talking to my lovely little cousin yesterday, before we're supposed to do something, there's fear and angst and anxiety because we know, we haven't admitted it to anybody else, but we know in our hearts that this is bigger than us. Our impact and our presence and us leaning in and standing before people or whatever it is that's about to happen, an assignment that we've been given is bigger than us, and it's going to impact so much more. And there's angst and there's anxiousness, and a lot of times we'll say, that must mean I'm not supposed to do it. No, I basically was telling her, I say, Yah gave us 5 senses: the sight, the smell, the taste, the hearing, the touch. We were given these senses so that he could alert us with what he's given us, our emotions. So our emotions are our gauge. They're not our guide, but they're our gauge. And it's like, hey, that angst says fret not, right? Don't fear. Fear involves torment. Don't be fearful. And be anxious about nothing, right? But in all things through prayer and petitioning. So when that anxiousness comes, we're supposed to petition the throne. And a lot of times we allow it to cause us to shrink. So this was so amazing that before we are given an assignment, because he's afraid, he don't know what to do. And a lot of times we're afraid and we don't know what to do. And instead of posturing ourselves and taking on a posture of humility and asking for help or admitting our reliance on someone, on Yah, who is bigger than us, who knows more than us, and who knows why he's commissioned us to do something, we just won't do it. And that is a form of disobedience. So delayed obedience is still disobedience, and not doing things when you're prompted to do it, no matter how big it looks. Stop and pray. Before he gives us assignment, he always tells us to take courage, because he knows our humanity, he knows our fragility, and he knows our dependence on him is the only way that we'll have success, right? And so that's why today also I'm sitting before you, because all of the things I want to do, I cannot do without Yah opening those doors. I can't do without him fortifying me and filling me with courage and with boldness and with wisdom and insight into what I'm doing, because it's a lot of times I just sit back and I want to be quiet. I know a lot of things that are happening, about what to say about the things that are happening or being done,
And a lot of times I'm like, no, people are not ready for that. They don't want to hear that. But he says, I told you to say it. So that's why I'm sitting here today, right? Because I've been told and commissioned, and in my fear of failure, and in my fear, the need to be a perfectionist, I have decided to be obedient. So he invites us to join him with a requirement. So he invited us to join him. He said, you go into the battle. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, okay? Tomorrow, go down, verse 16, go down against them. Behold, look, they're going to come. And they're going to come up by the accent of Ziz. I'm going to tell you which way they come. And he's telling them what's going to happen. So how can you not trust this, right? How can you not trust one that gives you a peek behind the window, behind the curtains of what's getting ready to happen the next day? Because that's what a lot of times we're fretful about, is we don't know what's going to happen the next day, or we don't know what's going to happen when we do, or if we go. Do it anyway when he's told you what to do, right? He says, go. And you said you'll find him at the end of the valley in front of in the wilderness of Uriel. But guess what? You don't have to fight. That's another thing. You come to this house, or you come and mess with my kids? They don't have to fight. They gonna probably have to. They be trying to stop me from getting you, but that's not the case with Yah. He said, no, just go and do this. You need not fight this battle. Just station yourself. Just stand there. Stand with me. Stand behind me. I got it. And see the salvation of Yahuwah. Watch me work. So many times we don't watch him work. We forget, like, I am merely a breath, a vapor, and it can be snatched at any moment. We forget who our Elohim is. We forget who our daddy is. We be tripping. And I tell my kids that sometimes too. You be tripping. I mean, and I'm not in no right saying that I'm even equivalent to that, but the love that I have for you and my need and desire to see you come to a ripe, to your full potential. I will, in my mortality, I'll die for that, right? So how much more will our Father that created us fight for us when we are standing in obedience, when we have petitioned his throne, when we have come to him with in all humility and humbleness, and we are expressing our reliance on him? You think he's gonna let somebody destroy you? No. And if he does allow that to happen, it is still for his glory, right? But this isn't the case. These are enemies of Yah. They are enemies. They hard-headed, stiff-necked, hard-hearted, and they have come in obstinance. And so now he said, no, just stand still and watch. Don't be dismayed. Do not fear. Tomorrow go out. I'm with you. I'm going with you. So we see another thing. Leadership leads in worship. Those that lead should also worship. And if you being led by somebody who don't worship, you stop following. I'm going to say it again. If you're being led by someone who doesn't first acknowledge Yah as their Elohim, who doesn't acknowledge their reliance and their dependence on him, and who doesn't show you their humanity and that they don't know it all and that they have to go to the Father daily to be filled, because I'm just a broken vessel. As soon as he pours it in, I'm pouring it back out. And I'm not full. I can't be full of myself, because full of myself means I can't be full of him. Quit following. Quit following. Okay? So leadership should lead in worship. And if they don't lead in worship, you shouldn't follow them. Leadership sets the standard. Always give honor to the source of your strength. Leadership should set the standard. If a good leader will tell you it is not them that causes them to be a good leader, it is their reliance and the honor that they give to Yah for him being their strength. Often our weaknesses aren't revealed before a multitude of people. But in leadership, a lot of times our weaknesses are revealed in front of other people, but before a multitude of people. You're given a platform for others to see, and that is to point others back to the source of your strength. I hate to talk about it, but it's always ever before me. As a mother of that has lost a child and a grandchild, and who has endured a lot of different obstacles, highs, lows, valleys, peaks. I've experienced high times, low, very low times, and a lot of them have been very public. I've had public divorces. I've had public losses. I've had public business failures. I've had just recently I've been impacted by the pandemic where my business was shut down, and my reliance on Yah was solely all I had, right? And it's public because I had to, in humility, type all of my clients and send out a mass email and tell them, hey, the salon is closed until further notice. And then was given the opportunity to go back to work. And then again, the salon was closed. And I was put in a place of reliance on Yah. And that was very humbling. And it was before a multitude, before everybody. And I'm not the only one impacted. But I'm saying, as a person, a leader in my community, as a person who has a vast clientele and who has a lot of relationships with different people, I have been publicly exposed again. And I can now at this point say, you know what? Yah is restoring, and restoring back and better than what I was before this happened, right? And so often our weaknesses are revealed before a multitude. And that also requires us to take on a posture of lowliness and humility and reverence to our Creator, because I know He sustains, and He has sustained me. He spoke the words of Yah, the leader that was chosen, which is Jahazael, spoke the words of Yah, not his own words. He didn't come up with some slick crap to say. He spoke what was spoken through him. He spoke the words of Yah. He didn't add to, he didn't take away. Told him like what he said, because you start taking away, you cause death. You add to, you cause death. If he would have changed any of this, any kind of way, he would have caused the death of many, right? Vice versa. If he had left out anything, he'd cause the death of many. He didn't say, go down there and go start fighting. He said, fight. No, he did not say fight. He said, stand still, behold, watch. So that is also, so the repentance, the king bowed his head before the prophet. We're going to stop that. Okay. Verse 17. So in 18, verse 18, I've just read 17. And Jehosaphat bowed his head with his face to the ground. And all of Yehuda and Jerusalem fell down before Yahuwah, worshiping Yahuwah as well. They followed his lead because he led well, right? They followed his lead. And we have people that lead bad and we follow their lead. And it leads to destruction, or it leads to the fracturing of relationships and situations, or the closing of doors that Yah is going to open for us, or intended on opening for us. But because we didn't use discernment, and because we're following bad leaders, and because we're not reading the word of Yah, we are led into areas of destruction. So they followed his lead. So you follow, when somebody is following Yah, you follow him as he follows them, as they follow Yah. When they not following Yah, you stop. You stand still. Right here, behold, stand still. If he ain't doing if the leader's not doing what they're supposed to do, stop. Stop following. Follow your leader, this leader, up this way. Okay? So, and Jehoshaphat bowed his head with his face to the ground, and all Yehuda, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, fell down before Yahuwah, worshiping Yahuwah. And the Levites from the son of the Kohites and of the son of the Kohathites stood up to praise Yahuwah, our Elohim of Israel, with a very loud voice. This kind of cracked me up, right? It did. Because the Kohathites
their names are put there for a reason. It's not funny, but the Kohathites are the sons of Moses' nephews. And we remember that in Numbers 16, 31 through 33, they were the ones who did the uprising against Moshe. They rose up against them. And Yahuwah caused the ground to open up, him and his followers, and they were swallowed up and went straight to the core, wherever they went. We know, pits of hell. They went to hell instantly. They didn't die and go. They went while they was dying. So, and that's a cold piece. But they were the first to stand up and praise and worship, the Kohathites. So the sons, they stood up to praise. Yeah, we following the lead of the leadership. When the leader is following Yah, and Yah has told the leader what to do, we following. So that was very interesting, and also it just kind of cracked me up, because you see, I'm always talking about the breaking of generational curses and remediating your wrongs. And when you know you've done wrong, you learn to do better. And so when you saw what happened to this person when they did that, I'd be doggone if I'm gonna turn around and do the same thing, because the same thing will happen, right? You don't get something new to happen by doing the same old thing. New things happen when you do what you're supposed to do. Do what has never been done. We seen them do this. Now I'm gonna obey. I'm not trying to see if the ground will open up and swallow me. So that is it. They don't have to make a believer out of me. So that just was something that was really funny. But this verse 19 says that when the king heard what the prophet had said, he bowed down and worshiped. The king bowed when he heard the word of the prophet. So the leader of the nation, when he heard the word of the Levite, the prophet who was put in place and in charge of the temple and over the soul care of the nation, when he heard what he had to say, he bowed and he worshiped. And we were created to worship, right? Worship, I'll talk about that as we get to the next one. Well, they did in a very loud voice. Worship sends out a frequency that unlocks some things. And Yah said, my sheep know my voice and obey my voice. The enemy doesn't know what to do when he hears the voice of Yah. So we're going to see what's next. He wants to hide and flee. So we'll see what happens next, right? So Psalms 95 and 6. I just want to read that, because this is what we were created to do, and this is what happened. Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before Yahuwah, our maker, for he is our Elohim, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. Today, if you would hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in Meribah, as in the day of Massah, in the wilderness, when your masters tested me. They tried me, though they had seen my work for 40 years. I loathed that generation and said, they are people who err in their hearts, and they do not know my way. Therefore I swore in my anger, truly they will never enter into my rest. So it says, today, come let us worship, bow down, kneel before Yahuwah, our maker, for he is our Elohim. And today, if you hear my voice, do not harden your heart. Don't harden it. And before that, though, the Kohites and the sons of Korah, Moshe's nephew, and the people that he led, they hardened their hearts against the word of Yahuwah. And they were basically essentially destroyed. So we were created for worship. Verse 20. The enemies destroy themselves. Woo. Oh, I'm going to read another one after this. So the enemy destroys themselves. And they rose early in the morning and went out to the wilderness of Tekoa.
And when they went up to Jehoshaphat and stood and said, and when they went out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, listen to me, O Yahudah and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Put your trust in Yahuwah Elohim, and you will be established. Put your trust in his prophets and succeed. Okay? Psalms 55, 9 through 15. I'll start from the beginning. Psalms 55. Give ear to my prayer, O Yahuwah, and do not hide thyself from my supplication. Give heed to me and answer me. I am restless in my complaint, and I am surely distracted. Because of the voice of the enemy, because of the pressure of the wicked. For they brought down trouble upon me, and in anger they bear a grudge against me. My heart is in anguish within me, and the terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror has overwhelmed me. And I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Behold, I would wander far away. I would lodge in the wilderness, Selah. I would hasten to my place of refuge from the stormy winds and tempests. Confuse, O Yah, divide their tongues, for I have seen violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go upon her walls. And iniquity and mischief are in her midst. Destruction is in her midst. Oppression and deceit do not depart from her streets. For it is not an enemy who reproaches me, then I could bear. Give me a second. I'm twisted right here, tongue twisted. For it is not an enemy who reproaches me. Oh, thank you, Yah. Then I could bear it. Nor is it one who hates me, who has exalted himself against me. Then I could hide myself from him. But it is you, a man, my equal, my companion, and my familiar friend. My cousins. My cousins are coming to fight me. Ammon and Moab. My cousins are coming to fight me. These are descendants of Lot, who are Abram's nephews, children, our seeds. These are the seed of the promised seed. They come in to fight. And my companion and my familiar friend, who has had sweet fellowship together, walked in the house of Yahuwah in the throne. Let death come deceitfully upon them. Let them go down alive into Sheol. That's what happened in Korah. They went down alive into the land, into Sheol. For evil is in their dwelling, in their midst. As for me, I shall call upon Yahuwah, and Yahuwah will say to me, evening and morning, at noon, I will complain and murmur, and he will hear my voice and redeem my soul in peace from the battle which is against me. For they are many who strive against me. Yahuwah will hear and answer them, even the one who sits enthroned from of old, Selah, with whom there is no change, and who do not fear Yah. He has put forth his hands against those who were at peace with him. They were at peace with him. They didn't go back and fight them and destroy them. They just wanted to cross through so they could get to the promised land sooner. And they were warring against them. Him there is no change, and who do not fear Yahuwah. He has put forth his hand against those who are at peace with him. He has violated his covenant. His speech was smoother than butter, but his heart was war. His words were softer than oil. Yet they have drawn swords. Cast your burden upon them, Yah, and he will sustain you. Cast your burdens upon Yah, and he will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. But thou, O Yahuwah, will bring them down to the pits of destruction. Men of bloodshed and deceit will not live out half their days. But I will trust in Yah. I will trust in thee. Okay? So, that was 55. It was supposed to be 9 through 15, but that was the entire thing because I just felt like it brought a lot of things into context. The enemies destroy themselves. So in Tekoa, and they said they come into Tekoa. And Tekoa is, again, that thing when you see these names, Tekoa is a frequency that is usually used in the blowing of the shofar. It says blow it in Tekoa, but Tekoa is also a place. And it means bring forth the force of a trumpet. So bring forth the force. So in this valley where they, in a loud voice, worshiped and praised, there was an echo. It brought forth the force of the trumpet. And after the king, the earthly king, had been strengthened by the king, he encouraged the rest of his followers to trust in Yah. And Yah allowed him to lead again. So again, there are orders of operation. So when we manipulate the orders of operation, we come up with a wrong answer. Checkmate, right? So when we do things the way Yah has told us to do, and these places are so specific, and in each specified place that they were going, and he told them to go, and where he told them to do things, it was for a purpose. Go to Tekoa, a place where you shout, and when you praise, it will echo, and the ones around will hear. Okay? That was something that just like, I was in here clapping while I was doing my lesson. I was like, yes, okay. Okay. And when I read the scripture 55, and we talk about the inhabitants of these inhabitants, this generational disobedience and this generational pride and this generational strife has been passed down. And we do know that energy and frequencies don't go anywhere, right? They're in the universe, and spirits don't die. We die. But the spirit of antiquity, of evil, it still exists. And it's in some of these seeds that are being birthed, right? And so you have families who don't break generational curses by taking on the posture of humility and obeying Yah, that will lead other family members, other friends, family, whatever, into destruction. And so it's very important that we stay on our post. And even like I explained earlier in my video, when I lose my point of reference, when I lose my way, I go back to the word, because that is my point of reference. I don't know what else to do. I share a lot about relationships and different things on this on my YouTube and just in conversation, and I don't keep ruminating over the fact that I don't have a certain type of relationship that I would love to have had with my mother. I'm not going to keep glorying in that or ruminating on that, but I have used it as a template on how to be a better mother to my children, to my grandchildren, and a better friend to friends, and a better family member to family, so that I don't have to have this repeated cycle. I know how to say sorry. I know how to posture myself and admit that I was wrong. I know how to take criticism. A lot of us don't do that well. A lot of us completely shut down when somebody who we're in relationship with, because I do believe that without relationship, people can't speak into your space. And so if I don't know how much you care about me, I don't care what you know or what you've even experienced, because we haven't fostered a relationship. But if there's a relationship and a person loves you enough and comes to you to say, hey, bruh, hey, sis, I see this. Let's remediate this issue so that it doesn't carry over, so that it doesn't cause you doors to be shut into your face. Because that's what happens when we become obstinate and I know. That word just drives me crazy, because I don't know everything. I say I don't know a whole lot, even when I do know, but I don't know because I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I don't want to be quoted as knowing something that I didn't know. And in my pride, I don't know. I can't say I didn't know, and I'll come back to you with that. So let's really work on that, okay? But we see we're here where he strengthened the ones he led. He was strengthened by Yah, and then he strengthened his followers, and he pointed them back to, you listen to Yah, you follow what he said, because I'm doing what he told me to do. And then he consulted with the people. He appointed those who sang to Yahuwah and to those who praised him. Him in holy attire, as they went out before the army. and said, "Give thanks to Yahuwah, for his loving kindness is everlasting." When they began singing and praising, Yahuwah set ambushes against the sons of Ammon and Moab. I keep saying Ammon. Ammon and Moab. Amnon is David's son. It's just some other stuff, but I don't know why that name is stuck in my head. Maybe I'm supposed to do a lesson on that too. I'll see. Into Mount Seir. And who had come against Judah, so they were routed. For the sons of Ammon and Moab rose against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, destroying them completely. When they had finished with the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another. When they had finished destroying the inhabitants of Mount Seir, so the inhabitants of Mount Seir were the Edomites. We know the Edomites are the sons of Esau. So that's another thing too, where we talk about Edomites, and a lot of times in this walk, people talk about Edomites and they this and that and the other. They're your cousins. It's even said in the word, don't hate the sons of Edom or the sons of Esau, because they are your family. They're your cousins. Again, those generational curses, let's break them. Those that choose to follow the word, statutes, and laws, statutes, and commandments of Yah are your family. We have to learn how to agree, to walk out and work out our differences in love, in the word, use the word to wash and to restore and to bring life back to the dead areas where, again, these generational curses that have been passed down, they're good and bad. We can pass down spiritual blessings, wisdom, and wealth. Because as a wise man, you leave your child an inheritance, a good inheritance, not a bad inheritance. So many of us have left bad inheritance. And I'm just happy to have been born into the family that I'm born in. And also to have the time to go back and remediate those things where they had been broken by those that had come before us. I have a cousin who is also my god sister, and she lost her father, and it's unfortunate, but just to be able to reconnect and then put pieces to the puzzle back together, because some ugly things had happened between my mom and, my mom committed an egregious act against them, angry, and it didn't allow me to have the relationship as also being his niece and his godchild, to experience and to grow and to experience the relationship and the love that his daughter had experienced, because I didn't have my dad around. But now that her father has transcended, she and I have been able to build that relationship, or foster or restore it to a place where it's becoming whole, and it will carry over, and it will go into, I pray, the next generation, where our children will learn to love and embrace and see about and care about each other. So, a good father leaves a good inheritance, and her father did. And he left a story, and he left a legacy. And that is something that I get to experience by embracing her again. So that was just that. Share that. So he consulted. He consulted, which is the word ya'atz, took advice. He took advice from those in verse 21. He consulted with the people. He appointed those who sang. So he consulted, which means he sat down. The king walked amongst the people. He considered. He took advice. And he allowed them to guide and purpose. And before the army went out, praise went before. Worship went before. So those that praised, and those that worshiped, and those that called the remembrance. So the word consulted is ya'atz. And he appointed those who sang and praised. Hallel. Hallel is praise. And Hallel is Hey Lamed. So they showed the clear way. So hey lamed lamed is behold, hey, lo, behold, look, behold, toward. I'm pointing you toward to show you the clear way to who it is that's fighting with us and for us. So Hallel, hey, lamed, lamed, staff goad control, toward, go this way. So he consulted with those that beheld the way, okay? And the praise, Tahila, specifically, right? And clearly, Tahila is the tet. So surrounding, that's right, I don't want to get that wrong. Hey, behold, lamed, towards, hey, look, praise towards the one who's surrounding us. Hey, towards this. So the praise and the praise and the worship and consulting yachts. So back to, you got way off, huh? 24. So they helped destroy one another. The enemies destroyed themselves. They destroyed one another. They didn't have to fight. In Tekoa, where the frequency of praise and worship went out. And I said before, Yah's sheep knows his voice. And they obey his voice, right? So the heavenly hosts and all that obey and all that worship Yah in the heavens fought for his children, right? Those that obeyed him. And the enemy doesn't know what to do with praise, because that's what he wants. He don't know what to do with worship, because that's what he wants. And when it's not coming towards him, he don't know what to do with the word, because he wants to twist it, right? He don't know what to do with it. He wants to hide and flee. So what had happened was that frequency sent out caused the confusion of the enemy, and I don't know if they mistaken one for another, but they destroyed one another. And that's what we have to do. We have to learn to reverence, go to the house where his name is, call his name, quit marching in the streets saying everybody else who are created in the image, and call on the creator, call his name with a united voice. Quit infighting. Quit trying to figure out what we're going to be called. Call him by his name. Ask him to show us who we are so that we can lead ourselves out of captivity. Please. Verse 24. So when Judah came to the lookout of the wilderness, they looked towards the multitude, and behold, there were corpses lying everywhere on the ground, and no one had escaped. And when Jehoshaphat and his people came to take their spoils, they found much among them, including goods, garments, and valuable things, which they took for themselves, more than they could carry. And it was 3 days taking the spoil, because there was so much. So it was 3 days taking the spoils because it was so much. So we know, I want to just give you some clarity on where Tekoa was. In the city of Joshua, Tekoa is on the west bank of Hebron, a place where Yah told David to settle after running from Shaul. And we know that in that area, this is so great, right? I almost missed it because I'm looking on this other side. We'll look at Joshua 20:9, and I'll tell you about Tekoa and what also is in the west banks of Hebron. Hebron, remember, after he had been done running from Shaul, and Shaul was and Jonathan were deceased, he asked Yah where should I go, right? Joshua, where am I at? Oh, brother.
Joshua, here we go. I don't know what I was going the other way for. Joshua 20:9. And it says, so 6 cities of refuge. So in the book of establishing places to run to when you are being pursued by your enemy. So great, right? Tekoa is in that region. So Tekoa is on the west bank of Hebron, a place where Yah told David to settle after running from Shaul, a city of refuge. These cities were strategically placed so they could be easily reached within a day. So, say for instance, like you're out in the field and you're whooping your oxen, or whatever happens, you're throwing a rock, and you accidentally injure and kill somebody. There is supposed to be a place of refuge for you to go to run from the kinsman redeemer, because when there's bloodshed or when you have killed someone, that activates the kinsman redeemer. The kinsman redeemer comes to avenge the blood of that which was shed of their brethren or their family member. And there is a place, if it was accidentally done, you were supposed to be able to get to a city of refuge where you then were protected from that which was seeking to destroy your life. And so this is what is happening in Tekoa, the west banks of Hebron. Excuse me, I have children, and they sometimes they distract, and so we'll bring it on back in because it's a little frustrating. When you're leading and when you are serving in your capacity, sometimes others don't reverence that, and they don't take it seriously. And so right now I had a little distraction, so I'm gonna come on back. Bring it back. Okay, so city of refuge, 6 cities of refuge. And so we see here in Joshua 20:9, it says, and these are the appointed cities for the sons of Israel for the stranger. The stranger was allowed to go there, and the sojourner. And that's why that whole thing about us with these borders and immigrants and keep them out. And no, that is not biblical. That isn't built on the word. It is not even right, because if there's a sojourner and a traveler, if they are in your city, they are supposed to be the things that are accessible to you are accessible to them as well. So they are also allowed to go to a city of refuge if they are fleeing from their enemy until it's time to be judged. Okay, and so these are the appointed cities for all the sons of Israel, for the stranger who sojourns among them, that whoever kills any person unintentionally may flee there and not die by the hand of the avenger of blood until he stands before the congregation and is rightfully had their charges brought against him and tried and have the ability to tell their story. That's another thing. We are sojourners in this land. We are in the land of our captivity, set free to die. That's what had happened with us in slavery. We were set free to die, or to become, again, the set free to die in a land of our captivity after we've helped build a country. We were set free to die, and we aren't given the liberties of those who established this country. And so instead of being allowed a place of refuge in our captivity, we are killed in our captivity for being strangers here. Because little do you know, civil rights, we just got civil rights 60 years ago. And 30 years ago, after, has it been 60 years? Every 30 years, the civil rights, the act has to be signed again, because it took us almost 90 years after being out of captivity to get civil rights. And again, we don't really have rights because we're not really considered citizens. We are commodities in this nation. We are the wealth of this nation, and we're still property in this nation, and we're treated worse than animals. And it says here that
The stranger and the sojourner are supposed to be treated the same and be given a place to go and have a city of refuge. And police are killing us in the street, just pulling us over. And if we tell them we got a gun permit, or if we reach in our glove box wrong, or if we ask them why they doing what they doing, we killed. So we see the imbalance here. But anyway, the cities of refuge. And so the cities of refuge were in Kadesh, Shechem, Hebron for Judah. That's so funny, huh? Not funny. That is just like Yah. For Judah, for the tribe of Judah, Hebron was the city of refuge for Judah. And this is where he told them to go. Go to Tekoa. And that city of refuge ain't far from it. So after this, if you follow in the law, statutes, and commandments, you know you don't come to the city of refuge to wage war and for bloodshed. It doesn't happen in the city of refuge because it's a place of safety. Spiritual, physical, mental safety, right? I love it. So, back to the next point. Verse 26. Triumphant return to Jerusalem. Then on the fourth day, they assembled in the valley of Berakah. And for there they, in the valley of Berakah, for there they blessed Yahuwah. For there they named the place the valley of Berakah unto this day. And every man of Judah and of Jerusalem returned with Jehosaphat at their head, returning to Jerusalem with joy. For Yahuwah had made them to rejoice over their enemies. And they came to Jerusalem with harps, lyres, and trumpets to the house of Yahuwah. And the dread of Yahuwah was all over the kingdoms of the land, when they heard that Yahuwah had fought against the enemies of Israel. So the kingdom of Jehosaphat was at peace, for his Elohim gave him rest on all sides. Now Jehosaphat reigned over Judah. He was 35 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 25 years. So their triumphant return to Jerusalem, their order of operation after they had been given victory was again to Barak, or bless. Blessing means to proclaim what is good about, what is good upon the name of Yahuwah. And Barakah, they call this place Barakah. And in Hebrew, it is Barakah, that's the word, but it means blessing. And we know that it's spelled Bet, Resh, Kaf, Hey, Barakah, right? So it literally means this: the house of the head, or who's first. Where I go, because we know Kaf means palm of hand, to open or receive. So where I go to give praise and receive a blessing, right? So the palm of hand is where I go to give and receive, where I lift my hands, open my hands in prayer, and that is the posture of prayer, worship, Kaf. That's what we're doing. We're giving our praise, and our hands are open to receive that back. What Yah wants to give to us, what he thinks we need to receive, and to behold. So it means the house of who's first, where praise and worship, or giving praise and receiving the blessing, is behold, where it's beheld, to behold it before the one who is the one who can give the praise and the worship, right? So Hallel. So they all gave to the one who gives. They gave their worship and their blessing, and they proclaimed his name. And so they talked about his attributes and his qualities. And man, they reverenced what he had done for them, with them not a hair on their head was lost, not a cut, not a nothing, right? Where they gave the praise and the worship. And then we see where his name, the fame of his name, went forth to the rest of the nation. So he had peace on all sides. It's like, okay, the sons of Edom over here, Moab, Ammon and Moab came, and all those that were around that were coming to fight against them all destroyed each other. So everybody who heard about it was like, hey, we gonna fall back. We not messing with Yah and his children. We leaving that alone. And now he reigned over Judah for 35 years. And for 25 years, and he was 35 years old when became king. And his mother, her name was Azubah, the daughter of, let me say it right, Shilhi. And he walked in the way of the way of his father Asa, and did not depart from doing right in the sight of Yahuwah. But the high places were not removed. The people had not yet directed their hearts to Yahuwah, the Elohim of their father. High places. First, the mother. Why was his mother mentioned? That is something, again, his mother was mentioned because somewhere, what a mother is, the mother is Ima, or the strong glue, or the one that pitches that, the strong leader. And we know that what the character of the mother is a sacrifice, right? Her sacrificial love, her giving, her directing him and guiding him in the way that he should go, and being the strong glue that pitches the tent and holds the house together, guided her son and must have taught him the ways of the father and of Elohim and his father, and taught him the importance of being a person or a man to that reverence Yah. And her name is mentioned. And even if and some bad mothers aren't mentioned, their names aren't mentioned. But her name is mentioned, right? And so that might be something for you to study. I'll facilitate you in that thought. Study her name, see what her name meant, who she was. She was a daughter of someone. And her function. But basically, I believe her name was mentioned because as the function of a mother, she had done what was righteous in the sight of Yah. And so her name is mentioned here in this book. And so he walked in the way, but he did not tear down the high places. He didn't tear down the high places. They didn't tear down the high places. So people's hearts weren't turned towards home. Every time the high places weren't torn down, the hearts of the people turned back to pagan worship. And the children of Israel always suffered. We have to tear down those high places when Yah, and when I'm ministering to you, I'm ministering to myself. Tear down those high places, those places where we go and those things that have risen, want to rise up above Yah and above his word. And we want to do those things that are extra, that are acts of disobedience, right? The high places were basically used for places of idol worship. So we have to tear down those places, those things that are built in Babylon, because they've been brought here too. When they brought us here on those ships, they introduced that to us, because one thing they know, like Balaam, I can't destroy a people that Yah has blessed, but I can make them destroy themselves. I can cause them to destroy themselves. Right here. Enemies destroy themselves because they're not in the word, they're not following the law, statutes, and commandments of Yah. They have picked up the foolishness and the frequency and the hate and disgust for the laws of the Most High, like their forefathers did, and eventually they destroyed themselves and their descendants. And so the pagan idolatry, and again, we know that the pagan, the high places are called b.Yah, and they are the house where you move towards, with strong current is porting towards you to behold, hey, something else, not of Yah. Strong water movement towards something else. b.Yah, the movement towards something else. We don't want to move towards something else, because the word of Yah will not return to him void. It established the universe, the earth, and the orders and operation is set in place. And if we try to do anything different, the results are detrimental, not just to life, but to eternity. So every time it comes back, every time you turn your heart away from Yah and you leave those high places, the urge to do just that comes back with a vengeance. And so the children of Israel didn't tear them down. And so if we don't tear them down in our life and quit giving the altars use, quit allowing them to be used, and that's why I mentioned earlier about me and my relationship with my mother, the fractured relationship, not having that, and the relationship that I didn't have with my father. I don't continue to go lay on those altars in those high places that have exalted themselves to continue to be a distraction to me and to anybody else. I am okay. I have let that go. I have torn those down. And so I get so frustrated and angry when people want to go back and revisit that. The children the other day for 4-H, Royal Roots, our Royal Kids, they did they're a 4-H club and they're Royal Kids, and they did a lesson and they learned the difference between dirt and soil. I am a seed that has been planted in soil. I don't want to be planted in dirt. And so you know why I don't want to be planted in dirt? Because this is what I learned. I learned something that the kids learned, because again, the posture of a student is a posture of humility and humble, right? I didn't know this. Dirt is just that. It's just dirt. It just stains, makes stuff dirty, hard to come out, hard to wash out. Mix it with water, it make mud. It's good for making things hard and making it stick, right? Soil with microorganisms, it has nutrients, it has worms, it has compost, it has old, sometimes dead stuff. It has stuff that you've killed or that has died and turned back into the earth, but it's good for growth. Let's use that. So those relationships that were bad, those things, that envy, that strife, that hurtful word, all of that stuff, throw it out, kill it, and let it be let it turn back into what it was, right? And then allow the watering and the washing of the word, and allow Yah to water us and where he's placed us with all the ugly things that have happened in our lives. Allow that seed to go into that dark place and where it looks ugly sometimes, and just wait and be watered and sprout and grow and use all of those things, the components that made you you. Allow those things to help you to grow and bear good fruit. Bear good fruit. Quit going back to those high lofty places that are empty, because in those lofty places, b.Yah, there's emptiness. They're empty. Like the sons that were, the priests of Balaam that were praying and whooping their backs and making themselves bleed and trying to call down fire and for their sacrifices to be consumed, and they didn't do nothing but injure themselves because it's empty. You have God, they worship gods with eyes that can't see, ears that can't hear, hands that can't reach. We worship an Elohim who is high and lifted up. He looks high, he sits high, looks low. He blesses those that obey, and he fights for those who trust him and obey him, and you call upon his name and who have a relationship with him. He will commune with you. He's Abraham's friend forever. And I would like to be the same, for him to be Nia's friend forever. You want him to be your friend forever. So we got to get rid of those high and lofty places. We have to kill that stuff so that it doesn't come back and hurt the generations that come after us. And that's what happens. It comes back and it takes the generation after us into places that they have to go and endure and endure strife and confusion and disobedience. And these high places, also these holidays, the things that are basically worshiping the devil, the skies behind all the pretty shiny stuff, all the tinsel, all the beads, all the ornaments and the trees and the eggs and the candy, all of these things, those are high places, lofty, lifted up places, things to keep you distracted and to conceal the real creator. Okay, so let's tear them down our life. Let's quit rehearsing the mess that has already happened. It's dead, it's buried, it's decomposed. If anything, I'll let that be the soil that my feet will stay planted in, that cause me to grow underneath my feet. I'm not gonna keep playing in the dirt, making the stuff stick. I don't want it to stick. I want to grow.
Okay, I don't want to stay stuck in the mud. And that's what that is when you play in the dirt and when you keep playing in these high places and in your hurt and in your feelings and then your failures and then keeping dark secrets, and then the devil likes secrets, so he play with you with those secrets, or he entice you to do stuff that you used to do. Let's get rid of those high places. So the high places weren't torn down. Verse 34. And now the rest of the acts of Jehosaphat, first to last, behold, they are written in the annals of Jehu, the son of Hanani, which is recorded in the book of the kings of Israel. It's recorded in the book of the kings of Israel. So there's a book of kings, right? Okay, so book of kings in Israel, and it's recorded, the acts of the kings, good kings, bad kings. Matthew 1:8. I'm gonna look at that because I wrote it down and I forgot why I wrote it, but I know I wrote it for something. And so once I read it, it may come back to me. Okay, it talks about the genealogy. So this entire lineage, Azubah, Asa, all of these kings point to somebody. So their obedience was imperative and important, and for them to go down as good kings, because it said that David was established as king forever. The scepter would not leave the house of David until Shiloh came, right? And it says here in genealogy of Yeshua, the book of genealogy of Yeshua HaMashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham. To Abraham was born Isaac, to Isaac Jacob, and to Jacob Judah and his brothers. And to Judah were born Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and to Perez as born Hezron, and to Hezron Ram, and to Ram was born Abinadab, and to Abinadab Nashon, and to Nashon Salmon, and to Salmon was born Boaz by Rahab, and to Boaz was born Obed by Ruth, and to Obed Jesse, and to Jesse was born David the king, and to David was born Solomon by her who had been the wife of Uriah. See, when I say the names of the mothers, Bathsheba's name always went back to who she was and identified her. She was Uriah's wife first. And so that name is put here. And to Solomon was born Rehoboam, and to Rehoboam Abijah, and to Abijah Asa. And to Asa was born Jehosaphat, and to Jehosaphat Joram, and to Joram Uzziah, and it goes on and on. So you can look at the lineage. And there were, verse 17, we'll just go to verse 17. These, therefore, all the generations of Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David to deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the time of Yahshua, 14 generations. So it talks about our captivities as well. That's why I say sometimes, people, when I'm speaking to people that don't practice the entire obeying of the entire book that was written, I say people forget and over spiritualize things in the Bible, and they don't look at this Bible as a history and a reference point as well. And it is, you only want to read the Psalms, but you don't want to read Exodus and Deuteronomy to hear, or Leviticus to look at the laws, because you think that's done away with. But this book is everything. All of it has to be read, and contextualized, and read in context, and read from the front to the back, and obeyed the same way. And so I just wanted to highlight that. So that is the lineage of the kings, and who this king was right here, and who he was a descendant of, and what lineage he came from. He is in the lineage of Yeshua. And after this, Jehosaphat, king of Judah, allied himself with Ahaziah, king of Israel. He acted wickedly in so doing. So he allied himself with him to make ships to go to Tarshish. And they made ships in Ezion Geber. Then Eleazar, the son of Dodavahu of Marashah, prophesied against Jehoshaphat, saying,
Because you have allied yourself with Ahaziah, Yahuwah has destroyed your works. So the ships were broken and could not go to Tarshish. Allied himself with the enemy, or with someone Yah hasn't ordained him to do. And all that he did right, was counted as wrong because he acted wickedly in doing so. Alliances, joining alliances with the enemy, doing business with those that don't worship Yah, who don't keep the law, statutes, and commandments of Yah. I'm going to go back. I'll revisit 35 next week, and we'll do some more unpacking of that, because we'll read about what the ships and all that stuff, what it basically opened up the way to this, right? Because we were taken into Egypt again on ships, into captivity. And ships were used for military might and to go into fight. Why did you join alliances with your enemy to fight? Yah hadn't told you to go to war. So I'm going to conclude here. I hope the rest of your Shabbat is that of rest, restoration, reflection, relaxation. Enjoy your family. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. And until next time, keep it royal. We keeping it royal. Shabbat shalom, ahava, and blessings.